So I recently saw the trailer for the upcoming Matrix movie, The Matrix Resurrections. The Matrix series has had one of the biggest rises and greatest falls of any film franchise in recent memory. Rising to the great height of becoming an all-encompassing pop culture phenomenon, everyone loved wearing leather and posing for bullet time. Even baby Ben Shapiro, before he dedicated his life to owning the libs, couldn't resist donning a leather jacket with a katana in his mom's backyard. Everyone loved guns and trench coats, well, until Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold took things a little too far. But even that tragic incident could not stop the stranglehold the Matrix had in the zeitgeist of pop culture. It was one of the most unique and iconic franchises to come out of the Hollywood machine, a work of virtuoso genius that combined anime, Hong Kong kung fu, techno, cyberpunk into a unique cocktail that was its own unique beast. A movie that consumed and challenged pop culture with a bevy of Eastern philosophies mashed together with programmer lingo, but was also a movie with two sequels that audiences generally hated. The Matrix was a flash-in-the-pan mega success, but the well was tainted with its two sequels that proceeded to wipe away any goodwill the franchise has managed to build up as it indulged in its own worst qualities. Not even a super battle against a giant Mr. Smith kaiju monster in the Path of Neo video game could save things from oblivion. But now, 18 years after The Matrix has exited the world stage of pop culture, The Matrix Resurrection is back, which is being billed as a continuation of the story established in the first Matrix movie, complete with homages to all the shit you love. Hey, look, red pills, blue pills, Alice in Wonderland, and white rabbits, liquid mirrors, Morpheus, young Morpheus, because Keanu Reeves and Carrie Moss can be action grandma and grandpa, but no Lawrence Fishburne for you. He doesn't get to be an action grandpa for reasons. Maybe it's because he canonically died in the Matrix MMO game. But wait, that canon storyline featured in The Matrix Online isn't canon anymore because this new film is a continuation of the story established in the first Matrix film, and everything else doesn't count because we are not in the age of the sequel anymore. No, what is dead may never die, but rises again harder and stronger. It's not the age of the sequel, but the age of the soft reboot. And I'm here today to tell you why soft reboots are the coward's way out. You gotta love what you got back yet. We live in an interesting time in pop culture, a world where nerds have taken the keys to the kingdom and there is more sci-fi and fantasy swarming about than ever before. But at the same time, Hollywood has always been a fundamentally lazy instrument. When you're making $100 or $200 million bet, you want to do as much to hedge that bet as possible. In the 80s and 90s, the best thing you could do to ensure success was to put your faith in the star system. The idea that certain actors in certain roles would guarantee a minimum box office number. An age where the premise didn't put those butts in seats, it was about seeing the new Tom Cruise, Will Smith, or Sylvester Stallone movie. That age is dead and buried. Sure, there are still movie stars, but people rarely go to see movies based solely on them anymore. Now they are merely vehicles for the franchise. Don't believe me? Well, why don't we hear it from our new Captain America himself, Anthony Mackie.
The business has changed interestingly in the past 16 years that I've been in it. Like, there are no movie stars anymore. Like, Anthony Mackie isn't a movie star. The Falcon is a movie star. And that's what's weird. It used to be with Tom Cruise and Will Smith and Stallone and Schwarzenegger. When you went to the movies, you went to go see the Stallone movie. You went to go see the Schwarzenegger movie. Now you go see X-Men. So the evolution of the superhero has meant the death of the movie star. And that's the fear now, because you're now making movies for 16-year-olds and China.
It's all about the franchise, the recognizable. Why take the risk making something that could become the new Matrix or Inception of its era, made by some wild-eyed kid from UCLA, when you could build something from an already existing IP that people are already familiar with? It doesn't guarantee success, but at the very least it mitigates the chance of financial failure because you have a built-in audience, because people at least know what the thing is. But we've seen it time and time again with the reboot, when a film franchise is brought back to capitalize on the popularity of its predecessor to try and find a new contemporary audience. Tomb Raider, The Mummy, RoboCop, Child's Play, Power Rangers, Godzilla, Ghostbusters, It, Jumanji, Ocean's 11, Ninja Turtles, A Star is Born, Jungle Book, Fantastic Four, the list goes on and on. Every successful and unsuccessful film has come back again, and within the world of reboots there is a confusing term, and that is the soft reboot. What makes the soft reboot different from a regular reboot? Well, a reboot is when you start fresh retelling the same story, maybe with new actors, maybe using an updated film technology, make a few changes here and there, but generally nothing is connected to the previous film. But a soft reboot is when you build a story within an existing universe that's essentially so far removed from the original characters or events from the previous entries that it serves as a new jumping on point or reintroduction for an audience. Everything from the old story still happened, but the new story has a new frame of reference that's so far removed or unfamiliar it's effectively a reboot in name only. Probably the great progenitor of the soft reboot in Hollywood was the J.J. Abrams Star Trek in 2009. A guy who never really liked Star Trek did everything in his power to make it into the Star Wars, and he was largely successful, launching the Kelvin timeline, where a Romulan cruiser travels back in time, causing a splinter timeline with Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise crew separate from the mainline continuity of the Star Trek TV shows. Sure, all the stuff you love from the original series, Next Generation, and the other shows still exists, but now you have a cooler, hipper variant with Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and Zoe Saldana telling new stories that are separate but equal. Kind of. These films revised classic characters and moments like Khan, but with a new coat of paint. Many followed in its wake, like Jurassic World, a movie that proceeds to tell the same story of Jurassic Park, only in a fully realized and active dinosaur amusement park. I personally hated it, but a lot of people loved seeing Chris Pratt in action hero mode and were hungry for more dino carnage, making it and its sequel a huge hit. The events of the previous Jurassic Park movies happened, but the new events are so far removed they're basically telling new stories separate from the earlier installments, where we can see the exact same thing happen as a dinosaur theme park goes out of control. The recent Halloween soft reboot from David Gordon Green and Danny McBride serves as a direct sequel to the first movie, but completely disregards all of the other sequels and spin-offs, even the ones where Jamie Lee Curtis reappeared, like Hollywood H2O don't count anymore. It's a selective memory that works in some cases, but in other cases it becomes more troublesome. Take a look at the poor beaten dead horse of the Terminator franchise. There are only two really objectively good Terminator movies, and for the past 25 years I've spent a good portion of my life watching people try and make a formula they know people like, work, and fail miserably, creating one of the most convoluted continuities in film. What is the real Terminator timeline? Is it the one where Sarah Connor dies of cancer, then John Connor fights the girl Terminator only to find out that Judgment Day is inevitable and the entire theme of making your own destiny from Terminator 2 was complete bupkis? Is it Salvation, where we get to see the lamest version of the future war where John Connor becomes Christian Bale and befriends a human cyborg that Skynet made for some unexplained reason? Maybe it's Genesis, where John Connor becomes an evil Terminator who tries to kill his mother and Kyle Reese as they fight to stop an app launch that becomes Skynet somehow. Well, wait, those movies don't matter, because in the latest Terminator movie, John Connor gets killed in the first few minutes because the film wants to set up a new politically relevant John Connor to lead into a new franchise that will never come. And let's not forget about all the juicy lore from the short-lived Terminator TV show, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, where John Connor gets his own age-appropriate, anatomically correct Terminator sex doll. Each film tells a new story that invalidates or contradicts the previous ones in some way, hoping that it'll be the new franchise trilogy starter that will launch the Terminator cinematic universe that Hollywood believes the world wants. And here's where the soft reboots become a nightmare of continuity. The idea is that you can get rid of the bad parts of a story that nobody particularly likes.
Talk to the hand.
While keeping the elements they do. But honestly, that's just lazy storytelling. And it's what disturbs me the most about The Matrix Resurrections, the fact that it seems to be trying so goddamn hard to erase the previous two films from continuity. To just give that hit of nostalgia of the first film and serve as a direct continuation, throwing all the ancillary material out like the comics, the video games, and even the Animatrix, all tossed off to the wayside, stripped from canon. You know this is a fruitless project when you couldn't even get both of the Wachowski sisters back in the director's chair, with only Lana Wachowski returning while Lily decided to sit out of it, saying in an interview, to want to go back to something I've done before and sort of walk over old paths that I have walked in. Like, I was gonna go back and live in these old shoes in a way, and I didn't want to do that. She says the main motivation behind abandoning the project was the death of her two parents, but there's this lingering sense of ennui, that whatever pitch that Lana made to her was so unengaging and did nothing to move the universe forward that she didn't even want to bother. Not even a blank check from Warner Brothers to revisit the universe that defined her could change her mind, because it was nothing more than a cheap cash grab that threw out a good chunk of the universe. I mean, you could say I'm being dramatic, I haven't read the script, but the fact that the official synopsis bills the movie as a continuation of the first movie story and seems to be going out of its way to completely scrub away any association with the stuff that came after feels like a very forced attempt to try and reassure audience that the architect or the CGI Dragon Ball Z battle won't be returning. It's a lazy project, and disregarding or throwing out the canon is the coward's way out. It's the laziest form of storytelling. It also puts an especially huge burden on the project in question to live up to the legacy of whatever it's supposed to supersede. And well, you just got another terrible Terminator sequel on your hands. I think the best form of tackling a soft reboot is not to throw away continuity, but to embrace or acknowledge it. Take, for example, Jason Todd, the second Robin, who was so despised by the comic book community that DC Comics had an event with a special phone line where fans could call in to vote if he lived or died at the hands of the Joker. The fans spoke unanimously and voted to have Jason Todd killed. But eventually, the most hated Robin, like all good comic book characters, came back as the Red Hood, a vigilante anti-hero who broke Batman's one major rule. He killed and used firearms. He served as an excellent foil for Batman and has become a popular character in his own right. On the Marvel side, Captain America's young boy sidekick Bucky was an eyesore that was discarded in the later iterations of the character, but Ed Brubaker brought the character back and reinvented him as the Winter Soldier, a Manchurian candidate-style sleeper assassin who became one of the most iconic villains, who also received the best redemption arc and even made his way into the big screen, becoming an integral part of the MCU. Franchises like The Fast and the Furious and Saw managed to maintain and build engaged audiences by caring about the continuity. Sure, in Saw's case, this manifested in ridiculous retcons again and again, but at the very least it felt like the creative teams cared, and there is no greater substitute for giving a shit. And giving a shit is what propelled 9 Fast and Furious films into becoming mega billion-dollar blockbuster movies. Nothing is truly trash in the right hands. The real challenge is how can you recontextualize the things people hated and build better and stronger stories. Nobody particularly liked the prequel era films, but Dave Filoni was able to actually use the Clone Wars setting to make great arcs for the Clone Wars cartoon series. The lesson from all this is don't be embarrassed of your past. Embrace it. As Tyrion Lannister once said,
"Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you."
And that is why I'm pretty disappointed to see the big Matrix return just seems to be recycling all the things people liked from the first movie, while largely disregarding all the rest of the continuity from the other movies. Simply put, it's taking the coward's way out. Maybe I'm wrong, but one of the Wachowski sisters seems to think otherwise. And what can I say? I'm not a Hollywood screenwriter and probably never will be. But I can say this much, that if $200 million of production money and big screenwriter bucks are being shelled out for soft reboot after soft reboot, at the very least, I'm sure you could take a day or two and look through the Wikipedia page. You might find something really cool that could make an even better story. Or if you're really sick of reboots and sequels, just go watch Alt Shift X video on All Tomorrow. It's great. Oh my god, it's my favorite piece of sci-fi I've stumbled across. You can go enjoy the fandom on Reddit and YouTube, because if the world won't give the people the next big thing, then by god, the people will go and make it themselves. Thanks for watching this video. A special thank you to all the Patreon subscriber posthumans who took the red pill to support me. Joseph Malty, Aaron Toney, Carla Hoffman, Walking the Steps, Bari, Shonen Ronan, Eric Duhane. You're always welcome to join them and form the second human galactic empire in the never-ending war against the reboots. If you don't, you can support the channel by doing all the things YouTubers usually ask, like liking, subbing, and watching other videos in the playlist that are appearing now. Hope to see you in my next video.